Welcome to Stroda Brothers Farm. My name is Kirk Stroda. This is our Christmas tree farm. We also grow grass seed and hazelnuts. We've been in business for over 100 years in the Stroda family. We are here at our Cheshire farm where we grow Christmas trees. We're going to give you a talk today on how to grow Christmas trees. The life cycle of trees, we go back to where we were at with the smaller trees. Like I said, these are 4-year-old. And as they keep getting bigger and bigger, we keep making sure that the tops are straight, keeping them healthy. We fertilize them every year. And then once we get them up and we clear cut, then what we do, you can see off to over here to our right, that's oats, that's cover crop. What we've done is, like the field to your right there that still has trees in it, we will be clear cutting this field next year. And then we will do the exact same thing. We will come through, we will dig the stumps up, we'll put them in a pile and burn them, and then we will work the ground up and we will put lime, we will put pre-plant fertilizer, and then we come back out and put our cover crop of oats in. We're doing two things. We're putting humus back into the soil, and we're also keeping the soil in place throughout the winter. If you can tell, we're on pretty good hillsides here, and we have a bunch of erosion and such, so that's what we end up needing to, we do that to keep the soil in place and be good to the ground. Because if we're not good to the ground, in the future cycles of the trees, there won't be, the quality will go down, because if you don't keep the earth happy, that's the problem. So, yes. Miss Brown class from Jacksonville, do trees have blossoms? Well, yes and no. What the blossom is would be the cone. And most everybody have always seen, this is a Douglas fir cone, but all trees have cones of the Christmas trees. And then if you dig inside, it's not going to come out. That is a seed. So that's how the forests have all got planted in the past history. When the cone is still in the tree, as it matures, it opens up and the wind blows the seed around, and the birds pick the seeds up and they pack them off, and that's how you see trees randomly planted. But that's how we end up getting the seed for planting our Christmas trees. There's different zones where we end up getting our seed. Mary's Peak has got a good source of seed. Slet's River, and those are both for the noble fir. The Douglas fir seed source comes from Powell River, BC, and from Vancouver Island is another great seed source for it. What they'll do, they'll have people that will climb the trees, or they'll actually use helicopters to rake the tree. The cones are in the top of the tree, and a helicopter will come down with a rake and rake the cones off, and then the cones will fall on the ground, and they'll have people, then it'll pick them up and put them into sacks and haul them off and then to a processor, and they'll dry them, then they'll extract the seed out, and then the seed goes to a nursery. The nursery then will plant just the seed. There's different ways. There's containerized seedlings, and then there's planted out into the bare root is what they're called. They're planted out into the dirt. Then that seedling is grown for 2 years out in the nursery, and then they're lifted, and then we get them in the springtime whenever the weather starts drying out, and then we'll come back out and plant our trees into our field. What we plant is about a 5.5 by 5.5. And that is, we're planting 1,500 trees per acre is what we're roughly planting. Oh, thank you. Mrs. Brown's class in Jacksonville. Wrong one. Excuse me. Mrs. Myers in Keating Elementary, outside of Baker City. How long after harvest until you replant? What we'll do is where I had the cover crop in, we'll leave that 1 year into a cover crop, and then we will plant that back into trees. 1 more year from now, we will put trees back in this. We are heading up to watch the baling crew bale. And this is how we wrap the trees up. We will wrap the trees up, and this is how we get them processed and put into a smaller size so we can be able to get them onto the trucks. Condon, fifth and sixth graders want to know, how many trees do you sell a year? We sell 18,000 trees roughly a year. Like I said, they go all over. Our main customers are just California, the Bay Area, or Los Angeles. Now we're watching a baling crew. Some of you out there in Paisley and Condon know what baling is. We're baling hay, but this is where baling different. We're baling Christmas trees. What we're doing here, we're shaking the trees so we can get the needles out of it. And it's got a jaw on the inside of that where they put the trunk on it, and then they'll pull the tree through. And you can see the white tags on the trees. That's where our cut tag was, so the cutter knows which ones to bring in. Espérate, Moses. You can see the jaw, we'll have it come back through. The jaw will open up. And then that's where it pulls through, and it's got a cone that'll make the tree smaller. See how big that tree was? And now it comes down to that size. And what they'll do, they'll take it off, they'll cut the string and tie it on the top. And on the other side of the baler table, there's a color coordinations of different sizes. So that tree right there, they just took off, that's a 7 to 8 foot noble fir. They put it in the pile of the 7/8, and then we'll put a 7 to 8 foot tag on it. So here's another one. So go ahead and look how fat that tree is there, going to be coming through, and it goes to show you how much smaller it makes that tree when it comes through. Because if we did not bale the trees up, we get about 700 trees onto a freight truck of average. If we did not bale the trees up, we could probably only get maybe 300 to 400 trees on. Okay. The other thing, how we get the trees out of the field, we use a helicopter, and you'll be able to get to watch the helicopter be flying now. What do we want to see after this? Do we want to move away later so they can hear better, or still watch that? Oh, what they're doing here, they're flying the trees into the landing, and they'll be dropping them. And we have our crew that comes in. You can see the people there, and then he's already off going to get the next bundle. I did not time this field, but if you would time it, get your watch out. Oh, you missed it. It was probably only about 35 seconds for him to be able to come in when he's coming in there. There we have a person in the field. We call him the hooker. He'll take the end of the ropes off of the sling and hook up to the bottom of the helicopter. And he lifts his hand and steps back. The helicopter pilot knows it's time to take off. And that's what he's heading back down to our landing. And then they'll just bring them in, the same thing, and land down into a pile. And we have guys that jump on it really quick from the ground. They'll untie the ropes from the pile. And then we come in with a motorcycle and pull the ropes out to make it easier. The helicopter likes to pull about 800 pounds is what they can lift. So those trees there are some bigger trees. I think we're only taking anywhere from 3 to 4 trees per bundle. But when we go to Doug fir that are lighter, we'll go up to 10, 12, 13 trees per bundle. The helicopter is a very expensive process, but it's a necessity of one. He charges $850 an hour, but if we did not have that, without to use the helicopter, we would have to have a whole lot more manpower to be able to do it. And also, like I said before, we're on hillside, and trying to get the trees down off of the hills is, when it's rainy and muddy, is not an easy process. So the helicopter is an expensive process, but it's a necessity that we end up using. And we're able to get the helicopter virtually any day we need to. And also what that does, then we're able to keep our trees fresh, so we can be able to keep trees fresh to our customers. Miss Hull from Peterson Elementary, what do you enjoy most about this business? What I enjoy most about this business, this is where I'm at. I'm not in an office or a classroom, sorry teachers, but this is what I do. You get to come out here, yeah, the weather's crappy some days, but you put your raincoat on and you just do whatever the job that needs to be done at the time. What was I also saying? Another question. Can drones lift trees? Lincoln Elementary in Grants Pass. How can helicopters fly? How can a helicopter fly carry as much weight? Okay, the drones, they are talking about doing that, but some of the drones now are not big enough to be able to lift the weight that we need to have it be lifting now. Like I said earlier, he lifts about 800 pounds. I have no idea what a drone can lift, but I don't think it can lift 800 pounds. There are some technology now using drones to count and measure trees in fields. They'll go up over the top of a field and they'll hover, and they'll have the technology of picking out the color and the shapes of the trees. And then they put that into a program, and they'll be able to tell you how many trees there are and the sizes of trees that there are. So that is a technology that I don't think is probably that far. That we will maybe be doing that in the future. How soon, I don't know. Class of Ocean Crest Elementary in Bandon. How many trucks would it take to fill a load of trees, and how long does it take to transport your trees? Like I said, we put about 700 trees on an average on a truck, and we're acre of trees, there's 1,500. So virtually we can get 2 truckloads out of 1 field, out of 1 acre, excuse me. And then the time for shipping, when we were going to shipping to New York, it was taking 5 days. It was taking 5 days to go to Florida. It takes 2 days to get to Los Angeles, and it takes 1 day to get to San Francisco. But when we were selling to Hong Kong years ago, by the time we were putting them in a kind of a refrigerated container, and we were having to load it, they were taking it to Portland, putting it on a big cargo ship, and then taking it over. So it was 24 days from when we sent it here to when they opened up the doors in Hong Kong is how long it took. And by that also thinking, when they did go to overseas shipping, they would take them and they would blow shaved ice on top of the trees in the container, and they would put the temperature down to like 36 degrees. And when they opened up the container in Hong Kong, there was still ice inside of the trees. So they were saying, well, it must have snowed. So, okay. Paisley Elementary wants to know, once cut, how long can a tree be out of water? These trees here, the trees that we were just showing you and we were baling, they were cut 2 days ago. So we don't put them in any water here in our yard, but when you get them to your house and your yard, your home, it's a good idea to go ahead and get them into water. It does help. The tree will drink, a couple of pints of water in the first couple of days, but once it gets full, the tree really slows down and won't be drinking any more water. But it is still important to once a week, check your water bowl and make sure that there is water in the tree. It does make it healthier. They've done studies on it, and it does make a difference to have water on a tree. So. Irrigating trees. We really don't do any irrigating on our trees, but the last couple of years we've had some high mortality because we've had some hot weather in August and September. So what we've done is we've got to come up with a drip system that we have put out on the trees, and we got a big 500-gallon tank on the back of a truck, and so we're just using a drip system. We pull it down in between the rows and we leave it for 3 hours, and we're putting about 1.5 gallons every foot is what we're doing. And then when we get that after that time frame, we move it over to a couple more rows and do the same thing. So we don't, up on the hill, we don't have enough water here to be able to do any kind of a overhead irrigation. So anything we do, we have to bring water in. And once the tree gets to be a 2-year-old, we don't worry about it. It's put enough roots down that it can go down and find its own water. It's just the new planted seedling that doesn't have enough roots yet to go out and look for water.
Wonderful, Rachel. If you want to go ahead and ask a couple questions, we are done with the prepared questions that we had.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much to all the classes that sent questions in over the last couple of days. We've had a lot come in here now during the tour, so we're going to address some of those right now. So Kirk, Mrs. Parker's class from McMinnville would like to know, how long does it take for you to harvest all of your trees during the season?
We start about a week before Thanksgiving, because all of our customers want to have trees on their lots for the weekend, the day after Thanksgiving. So we have to start that early to be able to get the trees out, to get them processed, to be able to get them on, to get them loaded on a truck, to get the truck to wherever they're going. So what we're doing now, this is kind of probably the least favorite time of the year for us, because what we're trying to do, we've got our last orders coming in. When we start harvesting. We've got lots of trees, so when a truck comes in, you never have to worry about having enough trees for the truck. Now it's crunch time. I don't want to have any trees left over here that we have to burn or sell to somebody, try to find somebody to buy them. So what we're trying to do is adjust our tree numbers that we're still getting in from our retail customers, just with their numbers, their sizes and numbers of each tree to what we have in the yard. And if we have to go back out and cut a few more 7 to 8 feet, 3 to 4 feet, Doug fir, noble fir, Nordman, that's where we're at right now. So this is probably the worst time of the year for me, trying to get numbers, because we don't want to send a freight truck out not full, but then we don't want to have a freight truck come in here and not have any trees to put on it also.
All right. We have another question that comes in from Miss Evans' class, and she asks, how can you tell the different types of trees?
I can tell because I was growing up doing it, but if you're out here for a little bit, you can be able to tell the difference, especially you can tell the difference between a noble fir and then a Doug fir. We don't have a Doug fir right here close to show you. A Doug fir is more of a full teardrop shaped tree. But the new style tree is the Nordman fir, and it's a tree that has been around for, it's been growing for 15 years, but it's just starting to gain popularity. It's a it's kind of a cross between a noble fir and a Doug fir. It's kind of the tree of the future. The bugs don't bother it. The diseases don't bother it. The color, it loves when you fertilize it. The color is a very dark green. It can grow in any extreme conditions. When we were talking before about our seedlings being planted, we were having high mortality of noble fir. A couple of years ago, we were probably losing 30% of our new seedlings. When we would plant a Nordman fir, we were losing virtually none. It's amazing how much more hardier this tree is than the noble fir, the Doug fir. Next question.
Awesome. So our next two questions kind of go together. And the first part of the question is from the 4th and 5th grade class at Kings Valley Charter School. And that is, do the different trees smell different? And then Mrs. Bissonette's class also wants to know which tree has the strongest smell.
Yes, the trees do smell different. And that is the problem with the Nordman fir. I guess I should back up and tell you a little bit. The Nordman fir, and then there's a Turkish fir. They are virtually identical. You cannot tell the difference apart. The only way, if you look at the tips of the needles, I don't know if you can see, there is no white tip on the end of this needle. It's almost like the end of a pinhead would be a white little tip. This one does not, so this is a Nordman fir. If it has a little white tip, that is a Turkish fir. And the seed source from this comes over from the state of Georgia that used to be part of the Soviet Union, is where the seed from this tree, when it was started, it came from Georgia, the state of Georgia. Your teachers can get on a map and show you where that came from. So the smell, the only problem with this tree, it does not smell. There is no smell to it at all. That's the problem with it. People like to, when they bring in a tree in their house, they like to have the smell of Christmas. But noble fir smells, Doug fir has got the smell, and grand fir is the grand champion on smell. If you've ever gone and smelt a grand fir, it is a very, very sweet, pungent smell. It's a great smell. The only problem with a grand fir, they dry out quickly. So if you get a grand fir, you need to make sure that you don't get one at Thanksgiving time. You don't start getting it till after the 1st of December. We don't cut any grand fir until after the 1st of December. We want to be able to have some good rains and some good frosts. And this year we've had a couple of high teens here, low 20s, so it's been perfect. It sets that tree and it sets it going into dormancy so it'll hold up longer. Next question.
All right, we have another couple of questions that go together as well. And the first part is from Miss Evans' class asking how much rain do you get? And the follow-up to that from the Glide Homeschool group is, have you ever been affected by wildfires?
I'll address the wildfires, no, we have not. The area that we are here, surrounding most of us, there is no big major timber areas to be had, so we have not had any issues. We haven't even had an issue of any fires at all up in the Christmas tree fields. And now, what was the first question?
How much rain do you get?
We get about 50 inches here. This year has been a great year. In September, we end up getting, it was one of the, I think they said it was about the wettest September that we've had on record, which was absolutely perfect for the new little planted seedlings and then for the trees that we're going to be harvesting. That the ground is still warm. That tree, it's not growing in the foliage, but the roots are still growing and it will pick up water even when we get rain, and even the tree is, it's not growing on the top side, the roots and such are still growing. So that's, and then we went into a dry spell, and then we've had that good cold weather. So this year, the trees have probably, out of the last 35 years we've been growing trees, the trees this year are gonna probably be the healthiest trees we've had in a long time going into the Christmas season. Another question.
All right, so Mrs. Munn's class would like to know, how many years have you been working on the farm?
When doing Christmas trees, we've been about 30 years, and that's when 35 years ago, we started working for the neighbor Christmas tree grower, and then we started ours. So we've been doing Christmas trees for about 25 years as Stroda Farms. But when I started working, uh, that was before child labor laws, and that's what we did. We worked. I think I was 10 years old when I started working. So my first year, I got a bicycle. Worked in the warehouse and got a bike for my first. That was my pay.
All
Next
right.
question. And I don't have it.
Mrs. Grassman's class would like to know if your tree farm is open to the public.
Yes, we do. Turn around. You can see the hill behind us with the timber on it, and there's a little cabin up there. That is our U-cut field. We are open on weekends. That field that you're looking at there is all noble fir, but we do have a field of Doug fir. So people can come up. What they end up doing, they pick the tree that they want. We cut it, we pack it out, we shake it, we bale it, we put it in the back of their car, and it's a full service deal here. Another question.
All right, we have enough time left for just a couple of more questions. And the next one is going to be, when you plant the trees, is there a reason that you plant them in such straight rows?
Pardon? I didn't quite hear.
Why do you plant the trees in straight rows?
Just because it's easier to do when we come back and do any work in the field. And it looks prettier when they're straight, but we want to plant them in a straight row just for the work of the trees and stuff afterwards.
All
you can
right.
see there, you can see that the trees are all planted in rows. Because if you started going crooked up and down the hills and stuff, it would just be tougher to end up doing. We plant them with a cat and a planter, and it's just easier to do a straight row. Another question?
All right, our next question is, how deep do you plant the seedlings, and do you know if the seed is good to plant or not?
I got the first part of that. We plant our shoe of our planter. It goes down. We have a shoe in the front of it that rips the ground. So it's going down about 20 inches, but our seedling roots, they're about 8 to 10 inches long. So we're only planting them about 10 inches, but we do rip the ground a little bit below that. So we keep that, loosen that ground up below.
All right, and then the follow-up part of that question is, how do you know if a seed is good to plant?
That is not our job. We already, when we get it, that's already grown in the nursery, so we're only buying the seedling. We already have it, but the seed, they can test it in the nurseries before they're planting. They can end up finding out and seeing what if the germ is good, so that they only plant the right seed.
All right, Miss.
We might have a little noise. I think they're going to start the helicopter here in a minute, but we'll keep going.
We've got time for just a couple more questions. Miss Grotong's fifth grade class would like to know if Christmas trees have roots that spread out just like other trees.
Yes, they do. The noble fir and Doug fir and grand fir, they kind of go out like a spider web. But the Nordman fir, I think that's what makes them a healthier tree, is because their tap root goes way down. When we've yanked trees out of the ground before, we've had tap roots that have been 4 feet long that have been stuck down in the ground. That's how far that they're going down looking for moisture.
All right. And then our next question is, what is the slowest growing tree and what is the fastest growing tree?
The slowest growing tree would be the noble fir or the Nordman fir. Once they take about 8 to 9 years to get 8 feet tall, and the fastest one would be the Douglas fir. To get to the same height, we can do that in 6 to 7 years.
All right. Our very last question is going to be from Miss Brandt's class, and that is going to be, how many people do you have working with you on your farm?
We keep 7 people working full-time all year long. But during this time of the year, we have, I think our crew right now, we're right at 20 people is what we have employed. That's what we do to bring extra people in to be able to get the trees processed and harvested and ready for the trucks or to be shipped out.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Kirk, for taking time out of your busy harvest season to host this virtual farm field trip for us. And thank you so much to all of the classes who participated. We hope that you guys enjoyed learning about Christmas trees.
If everybody wants to hold on for just another minute or so, the fog we've been fogged in here all the day. We were supposed to fly our trees this morning, but as you can see right now, the fog is lifted, and so you're going to get to be able to see some live action of trees being flown in to our yard. We're about a minute turn. That's from landing, from picking up to landing and getting back. It's longer than what I want, but once again, we're down here down on some steep fields and muddy, and it makes it a lot quicker to be able to get those trees in. Well, you can see there we have a guy that is pulling the ropes. That's how the tree, that we bundle them up out in the field. And the guy on the four-wheeler, he hooks it to the peg on the back, and then he'll pull those ropes out of the bundle. And then he'll just unhook that, and later on we will wind all those ropes up. You can see the pile left over to the right-hand side of the motorcycle. I don't know if you can, it might be too far, but that's a pile of ropes. We have them all wrapped up and staged and ready to go when we go back out into fields and get more. And he's coming in again. After he drops, you'll be able to see the helicopter when he goes back out. We have a person that's out in the field, and what he's doing, he's going to the next bundle of trees and stand beside it. And those ropes that are attached to the bottom of the helicopter, he'll have those in his hand. And as the helicopter comes down, that round thing that's at the bottom of the helicopter, we call that the hook. And he has the two ends of the rope, and he takes them and he hooks that to the end of the helicopter, and then he just picks that up out of the field. As you can go back and you can see that right there, he's just going down in. There's a guy with a yellow coat on, yellowish green coat. He's hooked it and he's taken back off right now. So the helicopter is leaning out of the helicopter, and he's watching what's going down behind him or underneath him. This is John Henderson, Henderson Aviation. Been flying trees forever. They're an outfit out of Eugene, and he's just 10 miles away. So whenever we need him, we call him up, and he's able to come. Like I said earlier, we were supposed to fly this morning at 9:30. It was kind of funny. We had no fog up here this morning, but down in the valley, there was a lot of fog. And then once the fog cleared down there, it all blew up here on top of the hill, and it all stacked us in, so we couldn't see. So that's why we're flying so late in today, but it works out for you. Okay. I hope you've learned something today. I'm thanking you. I thank you for coming visiting me at my office. So you got a little bit more facts. You can go home and tell your mom and dad about Christmas trees. And when you go out and look to buy a tree, you'll be able to ask questions about it. And so you can put it in your house, put water, and have a beautiful holiday season with the tree.